Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every UEFA Champions League and Europa League match live on BT Sport this season.
This is News Talk.
It is Thursday evening. Delighted as always to be joined by John Giles. Evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
Quite remarkable week in the Champions League, particularly at Anfield. Liverpool conceding 5 at home against Real Madrid. Something that certainly didn't look possible 15 minutes into the game when they led by 2-0. How can a team start so well and capitulate like that, a team of the experience of Liverpool?
Well, it shouldn't happen, Nathan, but, it's a 90-minute game. We've all seen it before. I played in some matches where we got off to a great start and then finish up not so well, and vice versa. It does happen, but it can be a long game, long 90 minutes, Nathan, when it goes that way. But it shows what the game is. Just because you start off well 15 minutes doesn't mean you're going to win it, as we've seen it many, many, many times before, and it happened to Liverpool during the week.
Has Klopp made a major error with his signings over the last couple of seasons and not rejuvenating the midfield in particular? Like, you have often used that line that Liverpool was go, 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 and like the energy that Henderson and Fabinho and Wijnaldum, when he was there, that they brought to that side, that enabled them to press high up the pitch, to win the ball back high up the pitch, that meant the defenders didn't have to defend a lot of the time because they were winning the ball back so often. The fact he sort of let them get old on the pitch, playing regular football, and not brought younger players in, is that on the manager?
Well, it has to be. We assume that he has control of the situation of getting the players in that he wants and then getting the players out that he doesn't want. And the recruitment has been very, very good, Nathan. If you look at the situation now, and we're talking about the forwards, Firmino's gone, and the other lad,
Mane.
Well, he's not playing. He's not playing as well.
Mane's gone.
He's gone on a bit, and Mane is gone. 2 great players. They've still got Salah, but I think the players they've signed up front, Salah's got. I might be not good on the names here. Gakpo, is it?
Yeah, Cody Gakpo. Yeah.
Nunez, Jota, Diaz. I mean, they're really, really top-class players. Now, he's been a little bit unlucky. Diaz has been out. Jota's been out. He's had injuries in that performance. But I'd have no problem about the forwards. I think they've really, really got strong forwards when they're all fit. I think midfield, he hasn't recruited very well, Nathan. Henderson is still there. Milner's still there. They have been good, really top-class players for Liverpool in a way that they worked really hard. They haven't been really great midfield players in terms of scoring goals, making goals, but they've been very, very good at what they did. And obviously they're a good bit older now. Fabinho they brought in, I don't think is good enough. Oxlade-Chamberlain is not in the team. They've got young players in Elliott and Curtis Jones, but they need more than that. So they haven't recruited very well in midfield. There's no doubt about that, Nathan. And I think the second thing that's happened to them over the last year or two is playing this high line. The high line as we see it. Van Dijk, we know, was injured for a long time. He's come back. I don't know if he's the same Van Dijk. But they have gone to a high line, which is an old-fashioned offside trap. And I think when they were playing really well, it didn't matter so much. But now that they're under pressure at the back more than ever before, I think this offside trap is deadly. And then you've got the situation with the right back, Nathan.
Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yeah. Now, when they were playing well and they were attacking, he was a plus because he was brilliant at creating goals. He was brilliant around the ball. But now that they're not attacking so much, they obviously have to defend more. And he's a really poor defender.
So
definitely, he's not a good defender at all.
So all of that is fine when Liverpool are at their best, as say they were last season, where they win 2 cups, they get to the Champions League final, they bring the league title to the final day of the season, get over 90 points, and it felt in the 20 minutes like that they had that energy. They were winning the ball high up the pitch. There was a real intensity and a speed to their play that seemed to suit Salah as well. Alexander-Arnold is able to play in the front foot. He's not having to worry massively about what Vinicius is going to do because they're just not getting him the ball. What changes then that Real Madrid are able to get on top and establish supremacy, particularly in midfield?
Well, that's why they had the players. You know, they had the players in midfield. Like Liverpool don't have a Modric. You know, for example, I mean, Modric is still a great player. I think he's 37. He's a credit to the game and to himself to do it. But Liverpool have nobody like that in the middle of the field. And the game lasts for 90 minutes, Nathan. Now, you see a lot of teams get a good start for 15 minutes. But that's the game. You know, the other teams get a grip of it, which Real Madrid did after, I think, say, 20 minutes, 25 minutes at the most, and actually dominated them for the rest of the game. That happens, Nathan. You know, you start off well, everything is okay, but it's a 90-minute job, and Liverpool didn't last 90 minutes. I mean, it lasted about 20 minutes, very good. They got 2 up. The goalkeeper made a mistake for one of them, and then Liverpool's goalkeeper made a mistake at the other end, which is most unusual for both of those goalkeepers are top. But it's 90 minutes is a long time in football. It can be, especially when you score 2 early on. You know, if Real Madrid had scored 2 early on, there's a good chance that they would have been able to hold on to it or go from there. But Liverpool don't have, especially in midfield. When you're a midfield player like Graham Souness they had, and Modric, for example, they can read how the game is going. You go 2 up, and the goals dictate the game, Nathan, and the way you play. If you go 2 up, you can play in a certain way, which is not going hell for leather for the goals. You can play it in a certain way and let the other teams do that, where you can catch them out. But Liverpool don't have a Modric or a Graham Souness to control the game. When they went 2-0 up, then you can control it in a certain way. You don't have to go hell for leather. That's up to the opposition. But Liverpool don't have a player of that calibre in the middle of the field that can do anything like that. You know what I mean? If you look at Henderson can never do it, but he was lively. Milner is getting old now, but he was a terrific player in the middle of the field for getting at the opposition. You know, like Keita can't do it, Fabinho can't do it, can't get a grip of the ball in relation to the goals, the situation of the match, Nathan. Now, I hope I'm making sense here because it's not easy to explain. But if you go 2-0 up, right, which they did early on Liverpool, now, Modric in that team would then get a grip of the ball in a certain way and put the pressure on the opposition to really go for the goal, to go for us, and then you take advantage of them again. But with Liverpool 2 up in the early stages, they had no player to dictate the game in a way that you're inviting them on and then you're going to hit them on the break, or you're going to get a grip, really get a grip of the ball. They have nobody like that. So when Madrid got on top, they had Modric and they had 1 or 2 players in the middle field that were really good as well. And they really dominated the game to get the goals that they did. But if you're not going to do it in midfield, you've got to be really good at the back. And I don't think Liverpool are as good at the back as they were 2 years ago. They're playing this high line, as we've seen in fairly recent times, which is the old offside trap. And the old offside trap is a game of chance. All the players get out at the right time, especially with VAR now going on, where it's showing things up. So it's a worrying time for Liverpool. There's no doubt. And even after the match, you know, when Klopp was out, and he was answered very, I thought, important. What's going wrong? And he says, I don't know. But if the manager doesn't know what's going wrong, he's not going to be able to put it right, Nathan. You know, so it's not a good time for Liverpool. All the great years they've had, there's no doubt about that. They've been a great team, great club. But they've a lot of work to do now, in my opinion, to get it back again.
Just one last question then on the midfield and maybe Fabinho in particular and how his form, it feels like it has just fallen off a cliff this season. Like he's not even 30 yet, but it feels as though a yard of pace has gone, which I'd imagine in the middle of midfield in a game like that, it changes your entire way you approach the game. Did you go through that? Have you seen players go through that where they've gone from being very influential?
With Fabinho, Nathan, he just doesn't have it.
Did he not have it last season?
Not really. Liverpool were playing better last season.
Yeah.
He's not. He's a player at times looks very, very good, right? But then he can disappear out of the game. Like if you go with Modric again and the likes of Graham Souness, they never go out of the game, Nate. You know what I mean? They might not be spectacular, but a little pass here at the right time.
Yeah.
I never thought that he could control the game. He could produce good passes at times, but then he'd go missing for 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 minutes. You know what I mean? Like the great players in the midfield don't go missing, never go missing. They're in the game where it might be a little pass here, a little pass there that's needed at that particular time. Then spectacular passes at the right time as well. But I don't think he ever had that. Honestly, don't. And we're not having to go at him, just having to go at him now because they're not doing well, Liverpool. But even when they were doing well, I never saw him as a player that could control the game. He could produce a good pass at times, but then he'd be out of the game. But the great players like Modric and Graham Souness never go out of the game. It might be only a little pass here, a little pass there, and they usually judge in the game, Nathan, things are going against us. We've got to do something. Just get a hold of the ball. A little pass here, a little pass there. Can do it. But Liverpool don't have a player like that at the moment. And they haven't had a player like what they did have, the players when they were younger, in Milner and Henderson, who would be winning the ball and making it more difficult for the opposition than they are now. You know, I don't think Henderson's doing it anymore. I don't think Milner's capable of doing it anymore. But Keita can't do it. Fabinho can, now and again, he could have a match, like Fabinho could have a match where he'd be outstanding, Nathan. But he wouldn't have a consistency to do that for 10 matches, 12 matches, 15 matches. He doesn't have it in him. And Liverpool needs somebody like that now, you know, because like I don't think Milner's able to do it anymore. Neither is Henderson. So unless they recruit and get somebody in the middle of the field and stop the high line.
I know you said there, talking about Modric, you know, a little pass here, a little pass there. It sounds so simple. Like we just can't talk about this guy enough. 37 years of age, has led his country to a World Cup final and a World Cup semi-final, has won, 5 Champions League titles at this stage, and just seemed to get better and better as the game went on. Again, you find yourself drawn to watching him and his willingness to take the ball anywhere. It didn't matter how many players were on him. I know you compare him a lot with Graham Souness, but when you are looking at the great midfielders of the last 50 years, he's in the mix to be in the top 1 or 2.
Oh yeah. I think what happens in that situation, first of all, he's looked after himself well. You don't get the 37 playing the top class unless you look after yourself well, really well, Nathan. And what you find with these great players, they start off at 20. Right, and they know X amount about the game. But when they get to 25, they double the X in the knowledge of what they have to do. And the older they get and keep their fitness, the better they become. Because when you're a young fella in that situation, you make runs that you shouldn't be making. Right, but as you get older, you don't do those runs. So every step you take, you know exactly what you're doing. You don't make stupid runs. And everywhere, and also the positional sense comes into it. I should have been there when I was over there. But you have to keep your fitness. You have to play that long. And there's a saying in football, you know, with some players in the game, they start off at 20, and when they're 30, they're still only 20 in terms of knowledge. But when you get the likes of Modric and these great players, they know every step that they're going to take now. When they were 20, they didn't know. They'd make a run. That's silly. Learn from it. You make a run another time. You do this. I learn from it. You learn from it. You learn from it. Till you get to the stage, he's 37. As long as he can move around and have his fitness, if he continues to play again, he'll get even better, Nathan.
Yeah.
Because it's a game that you learn, particularly in the middle field. Middle field is the only place that you can do what's needed to be done in that way. Because when you're a right back, you have to stay at right back. You have to do what a right back does. But when you're a midfield player like Modric, you can go wherever you want to go in relation to the ball. So you never see Modric make a run up the left wing when the ball's over the other side of the field. He'd know where it's going to be. and he'd be in the right place. Make it look easy, plenty of space. Give it here, give it there. And also he would know when it goes against you, or when it's, say when they got to 2-2 and they got in front the other day, Modric would play in a slightly different way then, Nathan. Now he's got to protect the lead. So he'd get it more on the ball, but he wouldn't have to make any spectacular passes. More simple passes here, there. Only one ball on the pitch, don't forget. You keep control of the ball, you keep Liverpool or any of the opposition out of it, particularly when that's what Liverpool didn't have the other day. When they went 2-0 up, Nathan, they didn't have anybody in the middle of the field that could say, we're 2 up, now I'll get the ball in a different place and do this and do that and do the other. They'd nobody to do that. So it goes wild on you.
What's the difference?
You notice when Madrid went in front, Modric is on the ball all the time. A little pass here, little pass there, little pass there. That's what it looks like. But he's in a position all the time to get the ball. And then when he gets it, then he has the ability to use it. And he's 37 now. He's still 38. He'll learn something from the game the other night. And every match he plays in, he learns something different to get better and better. A lot of players don't have the ability to learn in matches, Nathan. They are what they are, and they'll get the same all the time. They won't get better and better and better and better. That's what the great players do, and Modric is one of those great players.
What's the difference between what Modric does in that Real Madrid midfield and what Rodri does in the Manchester City midfield?
Almost everything. Almost everything. Rodri is a player that plays in the middle of the field, and if you stand in the centre circle in the middle, in a thing, you'll get X amount of possession of the ball,
yeah.
Nathan. Right? But what the great midfield players, they make the ball come to him wherever it is. And if you notice with Rodri, most of his passes are keeping possession. I haven't got a picture of him hitting a pass, a through pass, or a long pass.
So you don't see him doing what Modric did for the last goal, where he burst through the initial tackle from the Liverpool player and releases it forward to Vinicius?
No, I don't see any. He was one of the least players that I would compare with Modric.
Okay.
When he gets it at night, Roddy's okay, and his stats would be great because he very seldom gives the ball away.
Yeah.
But he very seldom hits a through pass. You know, when he gets it great, gives it to the right back, gets it back, gives it to the left back. You don't see him beating anybody. And if you look at his goal scoring record, it's not very good. So
no.
He's an okay player. He won't give the ball away. But you want more from a midfield player than that. You want him creating something. You want him beating a player. You want him laying on a goal. I don't see. I mean, if you have a vision of Rodri now, Nathan, I don't see him hitting a pass through. I don't see him beating anybody to set somebody up with a little through pass. So he'd be okay. His stats would be brilliant. His stats would be brilliant with keeping possession. But I don't see him as a player that's going to beat players and really get forward and score a few goals himself. It doesn't happen.
What of Manchester City then? 1-1 draw last night against Leipzig, beaten at the weekend by Nottingham Forest in what was a strange game. Manchester City had a lot of opportunities. Erling Haaland had a very rare off day, missed a couple of sitters.
Yeah.
But it does still feed into there's just something not quite clicking at City compared to last season. Like, is there any possibility Liverpool and City are both just having a hangover from last season? The amount of games they played, how hard they've pushed each other over the last 3 or 4 years?
Well, I wouldn't compare Manchester City's season to Liverpool's, Nathan. No, they're still in a position that they can win the league. And I saw the Notts Forest match last week. Actually, they missed chances. They did miss chances. There's no doubt in it. And even Haaland missed chances, which was a bad result for them. But you know, the way I don't think they're playing as well as they were last season. I don't think it's Haaland's fault. I think Pep has gone, I call it a little bit mad in what he's doing. He's looking for different things out of the game that are not there, in my opinion. Like he has one of the fullbacks, particularly the left back, playing like he had last week anyway, or for a while. Roberto Silva, for example,
playing at left back.
In a left back position, but also asked him to play in midfield. Now, I might have said it to you last week. I mean, I find in football, it's hard enough to play in one position, Nathan.
Yeah.
It's impossible to play in two positions and do it properly. You know? So, if for example, if Roberto Silva is a terrific midfield player, goes forward at a time when he's supposed to be in the left-back position, say in the middle of the field, and so, okay, if you're getting the ball, but if you lose the ball, right, which can obviously happen in football, then you've no left-back. You can't play two. Nobody can play two. If that was the case, everybody would be doing it. You can't play midfield and then play left back, because when you're on the position in midfield, if it's on the right thing to do, you go forward. But then somebody loses the ball. Now you've no left back, and that's what Pep is doing. Like even last night, I was surprised. The goal that they conceded was from a short corner kick against them.
Yeah,
but that should never happen. In any match, nobody should. In other words, you don't send anybody out, or you only send one out, and you've got a 2-on-1. You've no chance. If there's going to be a short corner and they're taking a shot, you have to put two players out there. That didn't happen, and I'd be surprised at a team because in football, there's before you go out the pitch, Nathan, certain things are going to happen. You're going to have throw-ins against you, free kicks against you, corner kicks against you. Now, as a manager or coach, you can do something about those things all week. In other words, if they're sending two out, we send two out. That's one of the things. That didn't happen, and that led to the goal. Now, I'm surprised with Pep, with all the things he's won and the coach he is, that can happen. That can happen. And it did happen.
So does that suggest maybe that they're not spending enough time focusing on the basics and too much time overcomplicating it?
Well, that's the way I would put it, right? And I think you put it very well, if you don't mind me saying so. Like football is a very complicated game. Very It's not a simple game. But what the great managers do, they simplify it. You know, and there's some of the things you can simplify. Before you go out on the pitch, Nathan, managers, all teams.
Yeah.
You're going to have goal kicks for you. You're going to have goal kicks against you. You're going to have throw-ins for you, throw-ins against you. Free kicks outside the box for you against her. Corner kicks for you, corner kick against. There's something that you can do and cater for before you go out on the pitch. Lots of other things on the game you can't cater for. The right half hits a screamer from 30 yards right in the top corner. You can't do anything about it. But a short corner kick is a mortal sin, as they call it in the game, to allow it to happen. And that's what happened last night with Manchester. He allowed it to happen. So he's concentrating on the left back doing this, they're complicated things that don't even make sense, in my opinion. And like some managers do it, like I think Pep is doing it now, looking for something in the game that's not there, Nathan. It is a complicated game, but what you do as a manager, one of these great managers, they simplify it as much as you possibly can. I think Pep is complicating it rather than simplifying it. I think he's complicated, and the thing is, he's done so well. He has some great players. Obviously, has some great players, and he's got some great ideas about the game. But you can't beat the basics. Defend when you have to, and attack when you can.
So
that's it. That's my take on the game, and if it makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be fascinating to see how it develops then. And listen, Manchester City could end up winning the league and the Champions League, and it's their greatest ever season, and they have the talent to go and do it. But last Thursday night, you were reflecting on the Arsenal-Manchester City game and the Manchester City performance that night, and then they followed it up with the defeat, and Arsenal found themselves on Saturday morning in a bit of trouble against Aston Villa, but showed a lot of spirit, showed a lot of quality as well, with the way they kept their composure and kept trying to do the right thing. Is that the sort of performance, as much as a victory against one of the other contenders, that would give you some faith that Arsenal can actually go and win the league this year? Yes.
They didn't play so well against Manchester City. Manchester City played well. Things went for them on the day, and they deserved to win it. But when you have the next match, which is against Villa, as we saw, and you go behind, Nathan, it's very, very, very easy to panic. And panicking usually is boot the ball into the penalty area instead of getting it down, getting doing it, the things that you should be doing. And that was very, very impressive against Villa. There's no doubt about that. They could have easily gone to bits, but they didn't. They kept playing the ball, playing as if you're winning, keeping the patience, and it was very, very impressive over the 90 minutes, Nathan. Now, funny enough, I'm just going back a little bit. One of the goals they scored, I think it was Shisenko scored it, from a short corner by Arsenal against Villa.
Yeah.
If you look back on it, right? So Emery is his new manager, I know, to Villa, but he's a very experienced manager. And that should not happen. Now, I keep going on about it, but these are things that you can plan before you go out on the pitch. This didn't happen. Arsenal were good. Arsenal took advantage of it. They got 2 out, got it across, scored from it. It shouldn't happen from Villa's point of view. But from Arsenal's point of view, it was impressive. They were a long way. They were goal down. It was going, but they kept playing it, and it came their way in the end. But it went to the last minute, didn't it? Or the overtime.
Yeah,
Nathan. You know, and there's going back to Villa. The reason they got the third goal was from a corner kick, and the goalkeeper came out, didn't he? The Villa keeper came out.
Yeah, and they caught them on the counter-attack.
And they got them on counter-attack. Now, Emery apparently said afterwards, I don't want them to do that, the goalkeeper to do that. Right? Now, my attitude, well, why didn't you tell him that? Why doesn't he know that? You know what I mean? These are things that happen off the pitch. You know what I mean, Nathan? You can say to the goalkeeper, and what you have to try and do as manager is to try and legislate for things that might happen. You know, that happened, and the goalkeeper went out and made a mistake. Now, he's saying afterwards, I didn't want them to do that. Right? But he should have told them. As soon as you come into certain things, you can tell the players, in my opinion, without playing even. In other words, from the goalkeeper, that's a no-go. If you've got a goalkeeper in that situation, I don't want you running out. I want you to stay in the goal. He didn't tell him that. Now, he might tell him now, but it's one too late. If he does tell him, you know. I'm rabbiting on about the manager situation.
Yeah, I think everyone understands what you're saying.
You talk about management, and you say, well, you know, somebody said to me one time about football, it's common sense.
Yeah.
And somebody says, yeah, the problem with common sense is not so common.
I did want to ask you about a game I'm sure you were keeping a close eye on last weekend, which was Everton against Leeds. From both perspectives, Seamus Coleman, match winner.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to say he meant it.
I believe he did, Nathan. He said himself he did, and I don't Seamus is the type of lad that would say that if he didn't mean it. You know?
Yeah.
Like he actually, and when I saw in the paper, but he gave the reason why he could say he meant it. There was something in his head when he was going forward. He couldn't see anybody or whatever it was. He said, and that's what I decided to do. I don't think Seamus Coleman would tell a fib on anything.
Ever. Yeah.
So he's too honest, and that's what made him such a great player. But what a win for Everton.
Yeah.
Leeds are in big trouble. There's no doubt. I don't think they had any. I don't think they had the shot and goal or whatever it was against Everton. You know.
Just on Coleman, just before we get on to Leeds, then, like, you know, as a great player, and look, he's come into to the Ireland team at a time where it's, you know, been a struggle a lot over the last decade, and he's been in an Everton team that have struggled a lot and have gone through probably half a dozen managers, if not more, since he got there. Like, you still see that fight in him. The game's over. He's scrapping away still with Nanto after the game. Like, he may not have the medals, but there is still a greatness in what he's done.
Oh yeah, he couldn't have done any more than he's done for Everton. He's just one of those characters, Nathan, that naturally does the right things. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be a bad bone in his body or a devious bone in his body. As far as football, I don't know him as a lad. I met him once. He's a lovely lad. But as a footballer, he wouldn't have a bad bone in his body in what he needed to do for the team. Be nothing about himself, and that's why there's a lot of players I wouldn't believe scored a goal like that. But I believe that every time from him. I don't think he'd know how to do anything else. You see him on the pitch when he's going for the ball. He goes, you know, honestly for the ball. When he goes on all the things he does for the benefit of the team. Seamus Coleman. I never seen him shirk anything. I never seen him disappear out of the way when things were bad. I actually see the very opposite. Now, he's one of those lads, as a fellow player, you'd want him there all the time.
Yeah.
trust him. You could trust him, and has the ability. There's an honesty about Seamus Coleman that some players you don't see. A lot of players you don't see.
You mentioned Leeds then. They're most certainly in a spot of bother. They are second from bottom, just 19 points from 23 games. They do have a new manager, Javi Gracia, who's one of the few managers that Watford have had in recent years that's maybe come away with his reputation enhanced. They've got a massive couple of games coming up at home against Southampton on Saturday, an FA Cup game then away at Fulham, and then they go to Chelsea, who they convincingly beat earlier in the season. The more you watch Leeds, and I know you felt for a period maybe Jesse Marsh was starting to turn it around, the more you watch them, do you think there is the quality compared to the 6-7 teams that are down there to stay up?
Yeah, I still think with the teams that's involved in that relegation fight, they'll do it. Just about. I think there's an honesty about them in many ways, and enough good players to get them out of it. Just about. Just about. I don't think the Jesse Marsh situation of leaving has been a bad thing for him. I mean, I would have. I wouldn't be. I never was a fan of Jesse Marsh's anyway. But I think that looking at Leeds and some of the things they do a lot of good things better than the teams around them, Nathan. They still have to do it. But if I was putting money on one of the teams avoiding it, I think it would be Leeds.
All right. John, we're out of time for tonight. We do want to talk Manchester United next week, because they've got Barcelona kicking off in a few minutes' time, and then they've got the Carabao Cup against Newcastle, so we might spend a bit of time on United next Thursday night. But great stuff as always.
Definitely. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every UEFA Champions League and Europa League match live on BT Sport this season.
This is News Talk.